Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. What would you do if you came home earlier than usual, expecting nothing more than a calm evening, and instead stepped into a moment that shattered everything you believed about your marriage? What if the betrayal didn't come from a stranger, but from someone you trusted enough to sit at your table, share your meals, and laugh with your family? Someone who was never supposed to cross that line. I never thought I would have to face a question like that. But life has a way of forcing you into situations you never prepare for. And the choices you make in those moments reveal truths about yourself you didn't know existed. My name is Robert, and before everything fell apart, I believed my life was simple in the best possible way. It wasn't glamorous or exciting, but it was steady. I had a reliable job, a wife I came home to every night, and a routine that had become familiar over the years. Our life followed a rhythm I found comfort in. Work, home, dinner, weekends with family. Nothing dramatic, nothing chaotic. Just normal. We lived close to my wife's family, something I once saw as a blessing. I believed it meant support, closeness, and people would always be there if we needed them. I trusted the idea of family completely. I believed loyalty didn't need to be questioned when blood and marriage were involved. That belief shaped how I lived, how I loved, and how I trusted. It shaped every decision I made in my marriage, and it explains why I never imagined what was quietly happening behind my back. Before everything collapsed, my marriage felt solid. We weren't perfect, but we weren't broken either. Like any couple that had been together for years, we had small frustrations. Some days she felt distant. Some days I came home exhausted and didn't have the energy to talk. We didn't argue often, and when we did, it never turned cruel. No shouting matches. No slammed doors. No words meant to wound. We disagreed, talked it through, and moved on. I took that as proof that what we had was real. I trusted my wife without hesitation. I never checked her phone. I never asked who she was texting. I never questioned where she said she was going or why she came home late. I didn't feel the need to monitor her because I believed trust was automatic in marriage. I believed if something was wrong, she would talk to me. That was the unspoken agreement I thought we shared. If she was unhappy, I believed she would tell me. I thought honesty came naturally when love was involved. Her sister's husband was part of our daily lives. He came to family dinners. He helped when we needed extra hands. He was always around. To me, that made him safe by default. I believed family boundaries were clear and unbreakable. I thought certain lines simply didn't exist because no one would ever cross them. That belief gave me comfort, and it also made me blind. Looking back now, I understand that warning signs only become obvious after everything is already destroyed. When you're living something day by day, you don't see it clearly because you aren't searching for danger. Your mind fills in gaps with explanations that protect the life you've built. Familiarity creates excuses. Trust creates silence. I explain away things that didn't quite make sense because I trusted her. Every excuse I made was rooted in my faith in the woman I married. The day I came home early wasn't planned. There was no suspicion, no uneasy feeling, no voice in my head warning me something was wrong. Work simply ended sooner than expected. Instead of staying late or finding something to fill the time, I decided to go home. I was thinking about nothing more than relaxing and ending the day quietly. When I opened the front door, nothing felt wrong at first. The house was quiet, but that wasn't unusual. She often turned off the television when she was home alone. I set my keys down and stepped inside, still unaware that my life was about to split in two. Then I noticed a pair of shoes by the door that weren't mine. They were men's shoes, unfamiliar at first glance. Panic didn't hit me right away. Confusion did. My mind immediately reached for a harmless explanation. Maybe a family member stopped by. Maybe someone needed help with something. I didn't assume betrayal because betrayal wasn't part of my reality yet. As I walked further into the house, the confusion began to change. I noticed clothes on the floor. A shirt I didn't recognize lay near the hallway, tossed there carelessly. That was when my chest tightened. Something cold moved through me, but I still resisted the truth. I wasn't ready to accept what my eyes were slowly arranging in front of me. Each step felt heavier than the last. The silence in the house grew louder, pressing against my ears. When I reached the bathroom door, I heard water running. Then I heard voices. 2 voices. One was my wife's. The other belonged to a man. In that instant, every excuse I had left disappeared. My body understood before my mind could catch up. I stood there with my hand on the door handle, fully aware that whatever waited on the other side would change everything. I knew I couldn't turn back, and I knew I couldn't pretend anymore. When I opened the door, I didn't shout. I didn't rush forward. I didn't lose control. Steam filled the bathroom, warm and thick, blurring the mirror. My wife was in the bathtub, and she wasn't alone. Her sister's husband was there with her. Their bodies were close in a way that left no room for doubt, no space for explanation, no possibility of misunderstanding. There was nothing they could say that would undo what I was seeing. No lie big enough to cover it. No excuse creative enough to make it something else. My body went cold. It felt like time fractured, like I had stepped outside myself and was watching another man's life fall apart while I stood frozen and powerless. They stared at me, eyes wide, faces drained of color. No one spoke. The only sound was the dripping water and my own shallow breathing. The moment didn't feel dramatic. It didn't feel loud or explosive. It felt empty, like everything I believed had been quietly erased, leaving me standing in a space that no longer made sense. I stepped back and locked the bathroom door from the outside. I didn't want anyone escaping. I needed witnesses. I needed the truth to exist in the open so no one could rewrite it later. I called my wife's sister and told her to come over immediately. I didn't explain why. I didn't describe what I'd found. I just told her it was urgent. Then I stood there and waited. I didn't insult anyone through the door. I didn't threaten or shout. I focused on control, because losing it would have destroyed me. The anger was there, burning deep inside my chest, but I didn't let it take over. Everything else was already gone. When the door opened again, I realized she hadn't come alone. My wife's sister stepped inside, and their mother followed close behind. I remember noticing the confusion on her sister's face. She looked at me like she was waiting for an explanation, trying to understand why I looked so empty. I didn't say a word. I turned and walked toward the bathroom. She followed, still confused, still unprepared. When I unlocked the door and stepped aside, everything changed. The moment she saw inside, the confusion vanished. Shock took its place. Her eyes locked onto the tub, onto her husband, onto her sister. Whatever version of reality she believed in collapsed in that instant. She screamed at her husband first. The words came fast and loud, but I couldn't tell you exactly what she said. My ears rang, and everything sounded distant. Then she turned toward her sister, and the sound changed. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was betrayal, disbelief, pain so deep it stole her strength. Halfway through, she slid down the wall, crying so hard it looked like her body couldn't hold the weight of what she had just learned. In a single moment, she lost her marriage and her trust in her own sister. Their mother arrived shortly after, drawn by the noise. Her reaction was different. She didn't scream. She didn't collapse. She went straight into control mode. She talked about calming down, about not making decisions while emotions were high, about protecting the family. I watched her closely and noticed the fear in her eyes. Not fear for what had been done, but fear of who might find out. Fear of what people would say. After they left, the house fell silent. My wife and I sat across from each other in the living room, but it no longer felt like a home. She cried. She apologized. She said it was a mistake. She said it only happened a few times, as if fewer times made it smaller. I listened, but nothing reached me. Her words felt like background noise. I understood the language, but the meaning never landed. Something inside me had shut down to protect itself. I didn't yell. I didn't insult her. I spoke only when necessary, and often not at all. Looking at her felt wrong, like staring at someone I was supposed to recognize but couldn't anymore. The woman I trusted no longer existed. Whatever connected us had collapsed, and no apology could rebuild it. The weeks that followed felt heavier than anything I had ever known. Time moved strangely, stretching each day until it felt unbearable. I woke up every morning not because I wanted to, but because my body refused to let me sleep any longer. For a few seconds after opening my eyes, there was nothing. Then the memory returned, sharp and crushing, settling onto my chest before I even sat up. I went to work like a machine, running on habit alone. I showed up. I did what was expected of me. But if you asked me what I accomplished during that time, I wouldn't be able to tell you. My body was there, but my mind was trapped somewhere else, replaying moments I couldn't escape. Food became something I forced myself to eat because I knew I had to. Everything tasted flat, empty, like it had lost its purpose. At night, sleep became rare. I would lie in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind refusing to slow down. Some nights I slept for an hour. Other nights, not at all. Exhaustion piled up until I barely recognized myself. Her family started reaching out soon after. Phone calls came first, checking in, asking how I was doing. Then visits followed. Unannounced knocks at the door. Conversations I didn't want to have. They asked me to think carefully, to consider forgiveness, as if forgiveness was something I could simply hand over because it made things easier for everyone else. They talked about mistakes and second chances. They spoke about not throwing away years of history over one incident. They used words like healing and moving forward, as if what happened was a small crack instead of complete collapse. What they didn't understand was that this wasn't a single bad decision. It was a destruction of everything I believed in. The woman I trusted had betrayed me with someone who was supposed to be family. Every time they spoke about forgiveness, I felt more isolated. They weren't thinking about what I had lost. They were thinking about appearances, about avoiding embarrassment, about keeping things neat from the outside. Worse than the memory itself were the images my mind created on its own. I imagined moments I never witnessed. I imagined lies they must have told, excuses they must have used, stolen time I couldn't account for. I didn't want those thoughts, but they came anyway, filling the silence when nothing else would. My mind tortured me with details I never asked for. I questioned myself constantly. I replayed every memory, searching for signs I had missed. Small moments that once meant nothing now felt like warnings I ignored. I blamed myself for trusting too easily, for believing loyalty didn't need proof. I asked myself what kind of man fails to see betrayal happening under his own roof. The questions never stopped, and the answers never brought relief. That month wasn't about healing. I know that now. I was surviving, not living. I was getting through each hour, hoping the weight would ease with time. But it didn't. And somewhere deep inside me, I realized that simply enduring wasn't enough. I couldn't live the rest of my life this way. Something had to change. One night, about a month after everything came to light, I was sitting alone when clarity finally arrived. It didn't come loudly or dramatically. It came quietly, like a truth that had been waiting for me to stop fighting it. I understood that the damage was permanent. No amount of effort could undo what had already happened. I imagined what staying would look like, waking up next to her and wondering who she was thinking about, watching her leave the house and questioning whether she was telling the truth, searching her words for lies. The image from that bathroom would always be there, hiding behind every conversation, every attempt at normalcy. I would doubt every silence, question every message, analyze every smile. That wasn't love. That was survival. Staying wouldn't save the marriage. It would only stretch the pain over years instead of months. I would become someone I didn't recognize. Someone bitter. Someone suspicious. Someone who monitored instead of trusted. I didn't want to become that man. I had seen men like that before, staying because they believed leaving made them weak, slowly shrinking into shadows of who they used to be. I made the decision that night. The marriage was over, not because I wanted it to be, but because it already was. The betrayal had ended it. My decision was just an acknowledgement of reality. Staying would only delay the inevitable while destroying what was left of me. The divorce process was slower and more painful than I expected. Paperwork, meetings, arguments over things that once seemed insignificant. We divided years of shared life into pieces, each carrying its own weight of memory and regret. I wasn't just ending a marriage. I was dismantling a future I had believed in. The pressure from her family didn't stop. They told me I was being harsh. They acted as if I was the one causing the damage. They wanted things to look normal again, even if it meant I had to suffer quietly. There were moments of emotional manipulation that caught me off guard. My wife cried. She promised change. She reminded me of the good times. For brief moments, doubt crept in, but then I remembered. Apologies don't erase actions. Tears don't rebuild trust. I listened to people tell me I was giving up. That phrase followed me everywhere. They said forgiveness was strength and walking away was easy, but none of them had stood where I stood. None of them had opened that door. None of them had lived with images burned into their memory. After the divorce was finalized, the emptiness didn't disappear overnight. The silence felt louder than before. I wasn't just grieving the marriage. I was grieving the man I used to be, the future I thought I would have, the trust one could never fully reclaim. Rebuilding didn't happen all at once. It happened in small steps. I cooked meals again. I went for walks in the evening just to feel the air. I learned to sit with silence instead of fearing it. I learned that being alone wasn't the same as being lonely. I also learned that walking away doesn't mean weakness. That lesson went against everything I was taught. I grew up believing strong men stay, fight, endure. But sometimes staying is what destroys you. Sometimes walking away is the bravest act of self-respect. I am quieter now. I listen more than I speak. I watch people carefully before deciding how much of myself to share. I trust more slowly, not because I expect betrayal, but because trust must be earned through consistency in actions, not words. I learned that loyalty only works when it's mutual. Love without respect isn't love at all. Family doesn't guarantee safety. Actions do. This experience changed how I see the world, but it also showed me something important. I survived. When everything collapsed, I didn't stay broken. I walked away from what would have destroyed me and rebuilt my life piece by piece. And no matter what happens next, I know this for certain. I have already proven that I can survive.